I am Anne, 58 years old, married with 2 children. My children are now independent, and I live with my current husband. He is a gentle and kind person, ensuring a peaceful retirement. However, I have a history of divorce. It's a laughable story now, but back then, it was quite painful. Today, I want to talk about that time, 30 years ago. Back then, I was 28, married, but childless. My then husband, Liam, and I were both working. 2 years into our marriage, Liam's business trips and drinking parties suspiciously increased. His behavior was strange. Being timid, it took courage to confront him. "Hey, haven't your business trips increased lately?" I asked, gathering courage, but he would snap back. "You're interfering with my work? Unlike you, I'm doing important stuff. Don't meddle." And I would fall silent. So I bore most of the living expenses. "Why am I paying most of the expenses? Aren't you earning more? Can't you show me your payslips?" "Why should I? It's none of your business." "It is. We're a couple after all." "Just leave it. Your earnings are enough to get us through." That was the situation. Even when buying a new car, my opinion was ignored, and Liam chose the car he liked. We split the cost, of course. "This expensive car isn't necessary." "What? You're telling me to drive a cheap car?" "Then at least pay for it yourself, Liam." "It's our car. You should pay too. You're so greedy." That was the kind of person he was. He never helped with household chores. It was like I was housemaid, overly relied upon for money. Liam didn't hide the texts on his mobile phone, filled with suspicious messages, mostly from his subordinates at work. When I suspected infidelity, "It's normal for bosses and subordinates to have meetings and drinks. Stop your trivial probing," he would retort. I was even hit by him. I had realized before our marriage that Liam was proud, full of himself with high pride. We were fatally incompatible. After enduring so much, my mental health deteriorated, and I lost a lot of weight. My parents and brother Ryan and his wife noticed and worried. I confided in them about Liam's infidelity. I was anxious about their response, but Dad kindly said, "Get rid of that guy and come back home." I couldn't stop crying at my family's words. I didn't love Liam anymore. It was my fear of divorce being a loss that held me back. Realizing this after talking, I decided to divorce. I was tired of being weak and constantly crying. I intended to make Liam and his affair partner accountable. I gathered evidence of the affair. I went to a detective agency and hired a lawyer. I decided to do all this alone. My family offered help, but I only asked for their support from behind. Handling the divorce negotiations myself would leave no regrets. Brian said to me, "If you're doing this, do it thoroughly." That's what he said. Thus began my days of gathering evidence. I secretly forwarded suspicious texts from Liam's mobile phone. I saved texts on his computer too. Since Liam often used his beloved car for dates, I installed a GPS in it. I also started looking for a detective agency and a lawyer. It was harder than I expected. I contacted an agency advertising in the paper and met their investigator at a cafe. But he was pushy. "Shall we investigate unnecessary details like the affair partner's family?" He tried to add extra options to increase the investigation fee. Eventually, "Sign now. We can take a loan for this," he insisted. I politely refused and had to look for another agency. I found one with reasonable fees and immediately went to their office to sign a contract. With a GPS in the car, I knew Liam's and his affair partner's movements, and I already knew her address and name, so the investigation was minimal. The detective I hired perfectly captured their dates and hotel entries. Once, I was complimented by the head of the detective agency.
You made our investigation easy by gathering evidence of the affair.
I was once praised. Should I be happy about this? When I had a good amount of evidence, I started looking for a law firm. I contacted several places, but initially faced many rejections, struggling to find a lawyer. However, I didn't give up and kept trying. I finally found a lawyer who understood my situation at a firm that offered paid consultations. By then, I was so resolved that I didn't care about Liam's texts or dates with his affair partner. I could eat again and felt my will to leave returning. Strangely, as I started living normally, Liam began to grovel. Was he feeling guilty? But it was too late for that. I preferred him to continue as he always had, carefree. Otherwise, it wouldn't work in my favor for the divorce. I was determined to fight thoroughly. Liam seemed concerned, but ultimately couldn't resist his instincts, continuing his outings under the guise of meetings. Finally, preparations were almost complete. As Liam left for his usual rendezvous, I packed my bags and left for my parents' house. Arriving there, a weight lifted off my shoulders. But I remembered something important I had forgotten. I hadn't retrieved the GPS I planted in Liam's car. Half paid by me. Checking the location, the car was parked at their favorite hotel, so I decided to retrieve it with Brian. Brian, excited like he was preparing for battle, accompanied me, worried that I couldn't handle it alone. But he was the one who needed to calm down. He found Liam's car in the parking lot and successfully retrieved the GPS. I paid half for this car, but hardly drove it. His affair partner was always in the passenger seat. I lamented, but Brian reacted strongly.
Drive it now.
What?
Say goodbye by driving it.
Really? But I don't want to risk anything by driving poorly. Despite my hesitation, I decided to drive a bit mischievously. When I parked again, I chose a different spot, parking it awkwardly at an angle. Brian exclaimed,
"Diagonal parking is perfect."
We locked the car and left with the GPS. Brian joked,
"This will give the couple something to talk about when they see the car parked like that."
That's what he said. He seemed amused. I think I enjoyed it too. It was the first time I felt like this since discovering the affair. I was grateful for Brian's presence. That night, I shared a hotel story with my family, laughing and having a great time. I might have been overly excited, trying to reclaim the time I lost in misery. My family created a bright atmosphere, caring for me. Would I have faced Liam's infidelity this way if I were alone? No, definitely not. I was thankful for my family's presence and support. Late at night, Liam repeatedly called my phone. I ignored him. He must have panicked finding the car moved and me gone after leaving the hotel. I had left a letter at home. I'll be staying at my parents' for a while. He knew where I was but kept calling my phone, not daring to call my parents' house. His pride prevented him from facing reality. It shows a person's true nature. His texts were self-centered as usual.
"I'm struggling with work and you're off somewhere."
I decided to give him a taste of his own medicine. Didn't he realize his hotel stay was exposed? The next day, I had my lawyer contact Liam. From then on, all communication was through the lawyer. Realizing I was serious, Liam became apologetic. His excuses and pleas filling my voicemail.
"It was a casual thing. Please forgive me."
There was no point in hiring a lawyer if I was going to handle things myself. I had the lawyer give Liam some educational guidance, which thankfully quieted things down. As I had been planning with my lawyer, I sent a certified letter to the despicable pair. To the affair partner, a single claim for compensation in a divorce case. For Liam, a triple treat. Divorce, compensation in a divorce case, and property division. When the affair partner, who lived with her parents, received a letter from my lawyer, she panicked and turned to Liam. After days of silence, Liam texted, "She's innocent." It was obvious they were still connected. Aren't they too foolish? Of course, my lawyer promptly warned him. "Didn't we say you're not to contact Anne? If you don't comply, we'll report it to the appropriate authorities." He was firm, and it went quiet again. Later, the affair partner expressed her willingness to pay compensation. I won't comment on her appearance. Everyone has their preferences. She claimed Liam, her superior, had forced her into the relationship, despite it lasting for years. Did she seriously think such a lie would work now? I felt disgusted, but didn't want to just protest normally. "Well, that's terrible. You're a victim too? I'll accompany you to the police right now. Please file a police report, not just for yourself, but for other women too," I suggested. She turned pale and started shaking, silent in response to my direct challenge. If she's going to clam up when confronted, she shouldn't have lied in the first place. She was more pathetic than I expected. Forced into a relationship, yet willing to pay for divorce case compensation? Don't you see the contradiction? That's why you end up in such situations. You're 30, right? Don't you feel ashamed? You're not a child. Take responsibility for your actions. Don't lie to evade responsibility now. When I mentioned I had a report from the detective agency, she stiffened. After trips to spa resorts and Guam, claiming harassment was absurd. She seemed eager to settle without her parents finding out and agreed to pay $15,000 of the $30,000 I demanded, settling immediately. Luckily, her parents didn't see the certified letter. Honestly, I wanted to expose her to her parents. She had bad-mouthed me in text with Liam, and he had spent a lot on her. I could have insisted on the full $30,000, but to avoid prolonging negotiations with Liam, I prioritized a quick resolution. With the affair partner settled, it was Liam's turn. I asserted, "I want a divorce and to recover what I've spent." That's what I claimed. Liam, however, was adamant. "I don't want a divorce or to pay compensation." We were at an impasse. Liam insisted, "I want to talk to Anne." So I agreed to meet him, accompanied by my lawyer. The meeting was calmer than expected. Liam started. "How low to snoop through texts and hire a detective," said Liam, who was persistently attacking me as usual. But being blamed by someone who is cheating didn't affect me at all. If he wasn't cheating, being followed by a detective wouldn't have been a problem. It was all his own doing. He apologized over the phone, but didn't utter a single sorry when we met face to face. If he had sincerely apologized then, I might have been softer on him, but that was not the case. I decided to initiate divorce mediation. And if that didn't work, I was ready to go to court. The evidence I had collected, including the verbal abuse and infidelity, was as thick as a phone book. The detective's reports and the lawyer had validated them, providing ample evidence. I couldn't lose. I remembered the old me, terrified of Liam's tyranny. It was because I had resolved to be strong and leave my weaker self behind that I was here now. My past self wouldn't have believed my current situation. In the end, no agreement was reached at the meeting. Just before the meeting ended, I said to Liam, "You always boasted about yourself, but you're far from it. Your mistress has a bigger heart. She cried, saying you forced her into the relationship. Despite being a victim, she not only apologized, but also paid the compensation in full for the divorce case. She was so honorable that I even reduced her compensation by half. Liam, who had been ranting, was left speechless. His face turned red. I continued. She may have been foolish, but how does it feel to be dumped by such a woman after you lavished her with gifts? In the end, she was just after your money and had little love for you. You always wanted to be surrounded by luxury cars and clothes. A shallow man who's easy to spot. You're like a man covered in gold plating. Nothing of value remains once it peels off. Abandoned by both wife and mistress, you're pathetic. You left so much evidence of your infidelity. You have no chance of winning in court. It will become known at your workplace too. I wonder how a man involved in workplace affairs and facing legal trouble will be treated. You keep dragging things out. But if I set my mind to it, I could easily ruin you. Don't you understand that yet? As an adult, you should at least learn to apologize. People with no substance are always full of pride, thinking an apology is a defeat. If you think that preserves your dignity, you're beyond saving. To others, you're just a pathetic man who can't accept defeat. Keep that in mind. That's my final advice to you. Liam couldn't respond and was dumbfounded. It was truly satisfying to watch. Eventually, Liam left hastily, barely saying goodbye to the lawyer. This might take longer than expected. I thought I'd have to settle this in family court, my lawyer said. Given his behavior, your ex-husband is definitely going to clash with the mistress. True, given Liam's nature, he might give her a piece of his mind. My remarks were just meant to be spiteful, but they seemed to have an unexpected effect. However, before it even reached mediation, Liam waved the white flag. He feared it getting out of work. He didn't pay the full demanded amount, but agreed to pay $30,000 immediately and $20,000 in installments, $50,000 in total. If he defaulted, it would be deducted from his salary and seized. We also agreed to cut off all ties completely. I might have seemed unimaginable before, but this experience showed Liam that I was someone who followed through when I decided to do something. He never defaulted on his payments. Later, the mistress contacted my lawyer. As I expected, she had been on the receiving end of a relentless attack from my ex-husband. Given they worked at the same place, he didn't act openly, but apparently, he was persistently attacking her behind the scenes. What a petty man. She couldn't consult her family as she was hiding the affair. She came to my lawyer for advice on what to do and where to go. I was almost impressed by her audacity to consult us, though she might just be foolish. To the mistress, my lawyer said, "There are many ways to avoid him, right? Like resigning or talking to your family for protection. This is an issue between you and him. I am Anne's representative. Anne came to my office on her own to seek help. Maybe you should find another lawyer for consultation," he seems to have replied. Eventually, she couldn't bear it anymore and confided in her parents, then resigned. Her parents contacted my lawyer to apologize on her behalf, but since everything was already settled, I declined. I wouldn't want to deal with a 30-year-old daughter's mess if I were a parent. I sympathize with the mistress's parents. Later, my ex-husband also contacted my lawyer once. After the mistress resigned and involved her parents, he became subdued, or maybe he started to reflect on himself. He said on the phone, "I feel the terror of the consequences my infidelity has caused. I wish I could start over with Anne."
but it's too late. And it hurts.
He seemed to be hoping my lawyer would mediate between us. My lawyer told him, I've handled many divorces, but Anne was the most decisive about it. Reconciliation is out of the question. He silently hung up. He's single now. He can date whoever he wants. Has his passion for the mistress cooled off? But that's not my concern anymore. I am truly grateful for my parents, Brian and my brother's wife. When things calm down a bit, I ask Brian, have I become stronger?
You're stronger than before.
Bro's wife is the strongest, wow! My brother's wife kicked him immediately, and Brian groaned. Bro's wife is reliable.
But that's good.
They're still a lovely couple. I'm living freely. I can work hard at my job, and food tastes good again. I regained my lost weight quickly. Though I was once devastated, those who have been through hell are strong. I think so of myself. I heard my ex-husband struggles to pay the compensation from the divorce case, working overtime to earn enough. The relationship between my ex and his mistress became gossip at their workplace, and he's working hard to avoid being fired. I didn't report him to his workplace. I could have pushed him to layoffs, but my lawyer said,
It's good to leave a little escape route. That's the art of dealing with such people.
He says it's the ultimate trick when dealing with that kind of people. It's been 30 years since then. I remarried my current husband and had 2 children. They are independent now, each building their own family. I hope their spouses are wonderful people. But if they ever suffer like I did, I want to be their savior, just like my family was for me. The old me might not have been able to do it, but I, who had overcome hell, surely can.